At the end of the video, you'll understand the different responses to anxiety and to trauma, just like fight, flight, freeze, and fawn responses, and what you can do about it. Hi, I'm Dr. Marinette. I'm a film clinical psychologist from Florida. Magandang umaga, hapon, or gabi po sa inyong lahat. This is the Brown Psych channel where we talk about Filipino mental health and anxiety so you don't have to suffer. So for instance, have you frozen in front of a crowd while giving a speech, or ever tried to secretly please someone even if actually you hate the person? The fight, flee, freeze, and fawn responses are natural responses to anxiety and trauma. These are also not just limited to trauma-related events, but also can be seen in other scenarios, going to the dentist or speaking in front of a big group. So let's talk about the first one, the fight response. People who have experienced, unfortunately, prolonged periods of stress and trauma often respond with a fight response as their body's way of protecting them from perceived threats. The fight response can be seen as the person's attempt to escape from the situation that caused their stress in the first place. The next one is like the flee response. So what are the effects of this response on those who have experienced it? Well, the flee response is also instinctual when we are faced with danger. The amygdala really triggers this response. So it activates the sympathetic nervous system. This will increase our heart rate, our blood pressure, which can decrease our appetite and sleep patterns. The effects of this response of those who have experienced it can be both positive and negative. They can feel empowered, relieved from the stress, and exhausted from fighting or fleeing for their lives. So let's take an example of Jasmine while we go through these responses, okay? Jasmine is a made-up client based on a combination of 2 or 3 clients that I've worked with before to protect their confidentiality. Jasmine is a newly married 35-year-old Filipino client, and she has issues with anxiety, specifically generalized anxiety disorder, social phobia. She also has, unfortunately, driving phobia, and also trauma from being bullied as a teenager. She is a people pleaser and a perfectionist as well. She recently gave birth to a beautiful daughter, and she came to my practice because she could not drive with her daughter to the doctor's office because of her anxiety and panic attacks. Her immediate response when driving on the highway, which produces a lot of anxiety to her, is to go to the nearest exit, or the flee response. However, after working with her, using cognitive behavioral therapy and exposure therapy, she was able to calm down her nervous system and was able to understand what's causing them, and also understand some of the cognitive distortions I will discuss later on, and also show you on how you can benefit if you are experiencing any of these kinds of responses. So the next one that we're going to talk about is the freeze response. This is the body's inability to defend oneself or flee from perceived danger, which usually triggers a panic response, leaving us feeling helpless or immobile in the face of the stressor. Some instances of the freeze responses are feeling trapped in a specific part of the body, having physical stiffness, heaviness of the limbs, having slow heart rate, feeling cold and numb, having limited breathing, or when you're holding your breath, or also the sensation of dread and foreboding. This is really a natural and more common, response than you think. And research shows that while animals are able to restore their functioning once the danger has passed, humans may find themselves locked in this freeze response, which may be related to the trauma or the original danger. However, if you are often finding yourself, getting trapped in the freeze response, this may be indications of an underlying issue, which can include acute stress, anxiety, or trauma. So one of the treatments for the freeze response, particularly and for trauma, is actually this thing called exposure therapy. So, you will become desensitized to it and hopefully eventually overcome it. To illustrate this clearly, I'm going to share with you my fear of public speaking. I used to have a public speaking phobia, and I know that a lot of people also have this particular phobia. If not, I think it's like the number one when it comes to phobia. Like public speaking was for me then really, really hard. So when I was younger, perhaps I was probably, around 13 years of age, I used to join oratorical speeches in my school back in Marinette. That's the province that I grew up in. My parents coached me in writing the speeches, and I would recite them in front of the whole school. And because I was successful initially, the school encouraged me to join an inter-school oratorical contest, and I did. I prepared my speak. I went to this state college where the contest was held, and together with other schoolmates, we sat in front of hundreds hundreds of other students from other schools. So I sat beside this one particular student from my school, but because kids at that age, as you can imagine, can be really mean, he taunted me and he said something like, "Hala ka, makakalimutan mo yung line mo, that means you're gonna forget your line, you better beware." And guess what happened? My body went into this freeze response because I was faced with, like this thing that I thought was a threat. My muscles tightened, my breathing became shallow and rapid. My physiological body responded to anxiety as if it were a physical danger to my body. I was so anxious. So I can imagine the amygdala, like part of the brain sent signals to my hypothalamus, which is a part of our brain that regulates our emotions, including stress and mood. And then it basically said to my brain that I am being threatened. So my heart was racing, my blood pressure, I'm pretty sure, rose, simultaneously preparing my body for action. Like I literally wanted to run. So in other words, I just remembered that, I really needed to have a new line. So my face felt hot. That was one of the most embarrassing moments of my life, but I couldn't speak. I just froze in front of hundreds of people. And then after that, I never went back to public speaking. But since I became a psychologist specializing in anxiety, phobias, and that's probably also why I love, seeing people with anxiety, phobias, OCD, I want to walk my talk and I want to face my fears. And now I am considered an international public speaker for mental wellness. Like I go in front of hundreds of people now to speak, but that's an example of the exposure therapy. I really told myself that if you wanted to overcome this fear of public speaking, instead of like listening to all of this different thoughts racing in your head that this is a threatening situation, I went ahead and faced my fears. And I became a public speaker for mental wellness. So the fourth one is called the Fawn response. And this is when, it's caused by a traumatic event such as accidents, physical assault, or witnessing violence. This response is not just limited to humans because fawns are also known to have this response. That's why probably this name was titled the Fawn, because of that animal fawn. Like when they're scared or startled, they just like freeze into place. And, I can imagine their heart rate is slowing down dramatically. And this reaction can actually only last for a few minutes before the animal starts to recover from the shock of the event and then eventually probably run. But what about in humans? Like this can be displayed by, some behaviors like, difficulty saying no, fear of saying what you really feel, denying your own needs. Sounds very Filipino, really. These are all signs of the fawn responses. And I wonder if us Filipinos kind of learned this fawn response because of the hundreds and centuries long of like being colonized, right? Like, have you ever been overly concerned with the needs and emotions of others instead of your own? So this may be a trauma response called the fawning. So what happens to our body or to us if we're often in this fight, flee, freeze, and fawn responses, especially in elevated states for long periods of time? As you can imagine, it's probably not good. And it will lead to a lot of health problems such as depression, chronic fatigue syndrome, and heart diseases. In the upcoming videos, I'll teach you some other coping tools to calm yourself and train your nervous system and also ease your anxiety. But in the meantime, I want to teach you something called the belly breathing, which I often teach to calm themselves and calm the vagus nerve. I also look forward to teaching you so many other mental health strategies so that you can ease your anxiety and stress along the way. Before we begin our belly breathing, I want you to rate, especially for those who are feeling stress and anxiety. And I can imagine that maybe that's also one of the reasons you clicked on this video today, is because you're looking for some strategies on how you can cope with the stress and the anxiety in your life. So I want you to rate your stress from 0 to 10, 10 being the most anxious or stressed. What's the rating of your anxiety right now? And then once you do that, we're gonna start our belly breathing. And you can do this by initially putting your hands into your belly, feeling your belly inflating and deflating. And if you're comfortable with it, you can also close your eyes. And so as we feel our belly rising and deflating, we're gonna inhale and we're gonna take 3 deep breaths to begin with through our nose. So inhale through our nose, holding that for 2 seconds and releasing through your mouth. We're gonna do that one more time. Inhaling through your nose, holding it for 2 seconds and releasing it through your mouth. This last breath we're going to take, I want you to take the deepest breath that you've taken today. This is going to be the deepest breath, so take a deep, deep breath. Holding it and releasing with a big sigh. And as you continue to have normal breathing, you can put your hands back on your lap or on your side, whichever you're comfortable. And at this point, I want you to concentrate on that point between your eyebrow, just releasing all the stress in that area, letting it go, just relaxing that point between your eyebrows and gently releasing all the tension. And now I want you to concentrate on that belly, on that area, and also gently releasing all the tension that you're holding there. Folks, this is where we really hold a lot of the tension, including myself. So imagining that belly releasing all the tension, just like imagining maybe there's a balloon in there and that balloon is deflating as you're practicing your breathing. And if there's any thoughts that are coming your way, those are normal. Those are normal part of being human. But I want you to just notice those thoughts without any judgment or without any criticism. Just let them float by and just notice them. And before we end our practice today, we're going to take another 3 deep breaths. So inhale through your nose and releasing all the tension through your mouth. One more time, taking a deep breath through your nose and gently releasing through your mouth. One more time, taking a deep breath and release it with a big sigh. And when you're ready, you can slowly open your eyes and come back to the room around us. You can start to wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers if you want. Now, my question for you before I let you go is, from the scale of 1 to 10, how's the stress and the anxiety now? Did you feel that you relaxed a little bit more? So for most folks, the answer will be, you'll notice a decrease in the tension or in the anxiety. And I am so excited to be with you in our community, in our small community here, to teach you a lot of other mental health strategies as we go along the way. And I can't wait to see you again in the next video. If you find this video helpful, or if you think that this video can benefit our other kababayans, please feel free to share with them the link or share with them this video. And again, before I go, this is Dr. Annette, and I'm going to leave you with my own personal quote. And that is to be gentle with yourself because we are all a work in progress. Maraming salamat po. I'll see you in the next video.